All right, let's talk about pricing and matrix because it's a common hot topic, I think year round, but especially maybe even at the end of the year. What are the common pitfalls of the matrix for parts managers? What are they doing wrong with it?
It's not what they're doing wrong. It's typically that they haven't updated or changed it.
That's fair.
One of the things, and we've done quite a few customer pay analysis. We tend to do probably two or three a week for different clients. But what we find out is if you're matrixing 10% of your retail sales, you're doing a really good job. Whereas matrix used to be really big 25, 30 years ago, it's not so big anymore. A lot of customers are able to get online, Google it, look it up, get a price. And so you have to be fairly careful about what you're going to matrix.
Yeah.
And I've had so many discussions where I see what I consider outdated 20, 30-year-old matrix tables, and they haven't been updated, they haven't been changed, and
How often should they be changed or
well,
updated
it's not a
or
matter of
reviewed?
how often they should be changed, Kaylee. It should be, is it realistic? And I give this story all the time, but for me, the eye opener was when I became a fixed ops director. I hired in a fixed ops consultant, and he was really there because I didn't understand service that well, and he was helping me with labor time guides and learned a lot
Wait,
about.
wait. He didn't teach you anything about parts, so you know everything? I'm just,
Well, yeah, he did. Hey,
I,
I'm an old dog, but I still learn new tricks in this business all the time. But actually, what he did is at the end of everything, after we got everything fine tuned, he said, "What about your matrix?" And I said, and at that time, we were like at about 39.5% on gross profit. And remember, this will probably date me a little bit, but it was 30 years ago. But anyway, and of course, I went, we're doing okay. And he goes, well, he brought up a topic or a line that I kind of scratched my head and had to think about it. He goes, does anybody ever complain about your retail prices? And I said, no, not at all. And he goes, well, you haven't realized, and this is the catch, you haven't realized your market threshold. And I went, huh? And he asked me, when was the last time you changed your matrix? I said, I can't remember. It's been a couple of years. So we went in and we tweaked it just a little bit and added a couple of percent to it. And then he left. In fact, I don't even know if he's around anymore. It was years ago, but
I
it was.
do think that we need to preface, though, that back then you had a lot of sources. And I think that's some of the missing piece when you tweak the matrix, right?
I didn't have as many sources as we use now, but I did have more than what most people did, 25, 30 of them, okay?
But that's important to talk about, I think.
Right,
Maybe.
because you have your price sensitive items, oil filters, brake pads, air filters, cabin filters, whatnot, that tend to get categorized as menu items.
Okay. But
So
go
the
on.
captive that you have, and sales have dissipated on those. They've gone down because manufacturers build the cars better. But with that being said, and working with this consultant, we tweaked it up a couple percent in each escalator category. And after 30 days, and I didn't really expect this, he called and he said, how's everything working? I said, oh, the labor's working spectacular. Everything's working really well. He goes, what about your matrix? How was your gross profit for the month? And I looked and I go, we actually got over 40%. We were like at 40.1. It was higher than it had been. And I said, hey, that's working too. Hey, thanks a lot. And he goes, wait, stop. He goes, I got one question for you. And I go, what's that? And he goes, did anybody complain? And I go, well, his name was Larry Jones. Yeah. And I go, well, Larry, no. And he goes, go in and bump each category 2% more. And I go, well, and he goes, no, just, hey, if someone complains, you can always go backwards. Okay, so I bumped it a couple of percent. We did that for 3 successive months. I got up to almost 42%. And then I was really, and he even said, did anybody complain? And I go, no. He goes, do it again. I go, I'm comfortable. I'm very comfortable right where I'm at. So I didn't even continue to keep pushing it, But he taught me a very valuable lesson that looking at your matrix and so forth, one of the things we tend to see when we go in is we still see some of those canned matrices from 25, 30 years ago, like a penny to $2, cost plus 600%. And a lot of the seminars I've done over the last 5, 6 years where I've done them, haven't done a lot, but when I do them, I would have the parts managers bring their matrix, and then I'd have them bring their sales override report. Mm-hmm. And we'd go through it, and guess where all the sales overrides were? They were in a penny to 250. You know, instead of selling 10 plastic clips for $50, they went and did S equals and made them $2. How do you look a customer in the face and go, these 10 little clips are $5 a piece? And so when I'd ask the parts managers, why do you have so many overrides? Well, the price is too outrageous. I said, great. So why don't you make it realistic for your people so they don't have to override it, which will save you having to worry about that. Mm-hmm. And that's what we see is the most successful matrices I've seen working lately are soft matrices. And soft matrix means we're just going to take all parts up to $150 and mark up list 10%. End of story. From a penny to $150. Over that, you tend to get shopped. Put it down the list or list plus 3, something like that. And when we've taken that complicated matrix with so many levels, or what I call escalator categories, 30 or 40 of them, and got them down to 2 or 3, it turns out that their gross profit actually increases slightly.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're not doing a lot of overrides.
That makes sense. And that's kind of the complete opposite of the source structure template. We have more sources, but then the matrix, you're saying like scale it down, simplify it.
Well, and I could even complicate it more to where what I'm getting at is you usually have a source to sell menu priced items or sell those sensitive parts at straight list, captive parts in a source that you matrix. But what if you had another source that you had a completely different matrix that was very soft, like list plus 3? There's one company I bring up, one DMS vendor, that actually has a thing called RMO, retail markup. And you can actually go in and instead of adjusting the matrix, you can actually go in and say, I'm going to sell everything at list, but in this source, I'm going to add $1.50 to every part that I sell. Okay? And it actually, now instead of matrixing everything, now you're just taking a $10 part and making it $11.50, and a $20 part and making it $21.50. It's just $1.50 to every part, and we've seen grosses successfully go up, and you don't have to put out something crazy that's escalated in all these categories. And Reynolds so far is the only one that really does that, and I love that feature.
That's a great feature. I do have a couple of questions kind of going back a little bit because I think I asked you how often they should be, or basically how often should they be reviewed is the question. Not changed.
Minimum quarterly. And I bring this up, and I'm doing a webinar for Dealer's Edge that's going to cover this, on December 19th. I don't know if this is after or before, but you'll determine that.
Yeah.
But when you look at the world of retail through social media, and hey, we all know through AI we get targeted all you have to do is go out to Amazon and, you want to look up a tent. Hey, I'm interested in buying a tent for camping. Next thing you know, you got 50 ads on Facebook trying to sell you tents, right? Yeah. Targeted marketing through social media, email, or print. Your grocery stores and Costco send you out, here's the special for this week. One of the things that they do is they're constantly changing it. What's on sale today won't necessarily be on sale tomorrow. Well, in the automotive industry, and this is probably more important than the matrix anymore, what we're discovering is people have sold oil filters for $9.95 forever. or an air filter for $23.95 forever. And they've never adjusted that price over a couple of years. And what's happened is the manufacturers come in and appreciated the cost. So, you sell an air filter for $23.95 that used to cost you $15. Now it's appreciated. It costs $18 and you're selling it for $23.95. So you're making lower gross because you haven't followed and marked up your menu items with the appreciation that the manufacturer has thrown. That's where we see some of the greatest losses in gross at car dealerships. And then they think that 10% of their sales in customer pay by bumping up the matrix is going to get their gross up on the other 90% that they haven't raised. That right there is the key. It's not as much the matrix, it's more making sure you maintain decent grosses on menu items, Kaylee.
And that takes a constant review and adjustment.
Correct.
Me too, yeah.
And,
Now,
I've said this twice this week with people that we did this,
yeah.
and I say this wholeheartedly, and it gets back to the story with Larry Jones. If you change your price and people complain or don't like it or it's not working right, change it back or adjust it again. You could change your matrix every day if you like. That's why they call list price suggested retail. It's just something that you focus on. It's about a 40% gross profit margin. But remember, there's nothing in the rule book at any dealership, and we work with, close to 300 stores, something like that, Kaylee, or have. I have yet to find one matrix, unless it's a dealer group that's using something. But I can honestly tell you, I see 300 different ways of pricing parts, right? And they may all get to some kind of gross of 35% to 43%, but they're all different. And that's something to remember at your dealership is tweaking or adjusting menu priced items or your matrix is all within the control of the dealer. Okay? So that's probably the biggest failure of a pricing strategy. That's a great way to call it. That's what DealerTrack calls it. But I like that because your pricing strategy is never written in stone. You always can make adjustments. We get going, we get busy, and that's just not a big focus. But anymore with warranty retail markup and lack of return allowance to get rid of obsolescence, it should be a real big thing.
It should be. Now the golden question, what is the right gross profit percentage?
Well, ultimately, and it depends on the manufacturer and the make. Luxury vehicles, we've seen it as high as 45%. The ultimate goal is 40%. We still see so often 36%, 35%. And when you really drill down and look into it, what you find out is you're selling some of your menu items and making 10 or 12%, and that's what's taking down the number and making a low gross profit down in the mid-30s.
So it also depends on how you calculate the gross profit percentage, right? Because that can keep or is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, again, just did a dealer that they wanted us to look at their gross profit, and after we calculated it out with their matrix and what they were using, they were down at about 34%. And hey, we want to see how often we're using our matrix. It was 1.18% of the time.
Wow.
So we were kind of like, well, you might as well shut down your matrix and increase your menu priced items, trying to get it up because they had a matrix out there that nobody was using. Some of the pitfalls we run into as well, like with DealerTrack, they have flat pricing. You can go in and put a flat price in the field, and then in their initial setups, you can say, we want to flat price everything. So warranty, internal, and customer pay, and remember, warranty is completely different, but they'll flat price and it'll sell under warranty at that flat price because you check mark that box. And why use flat pricing when you can easily isolate it and you can go out and say, hey, I want my retail to be straight list or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I felt like flat pricing was a terrible way to try and manipulate that. We had a dealer in American Samoa that we went in and implemented a matrix, and it never worked. This is, gosh, 8, 9 years ago. And we just didn't move the mark. And the general manager says, boy, what's wrong with this? Well, we went and pulled all their inventory and looked at, and this is where we discovered it. They had 3,000 part numbers with a flat price.
Wow.
So all the matrix in the world didn't matter because they had check marked sell it at flat. We went and removed that check mark and got rid of the fat pricing. Of course, the parts manager was really ticked off, but you know what? Their gross profit went up 8%.
Wow. That's incredible.
So
that's one thing to remember with, what was that, Dealer Track?
That was Dealer Track. Understanding and educating yourself to what works goes a long way in increasing it. And, with the lack of return allowance from these manufacturers anymore, it's really critical that you get your grosses. And in retail management, that's what a lot of them do. When you start looking into clothing manufacturers but clothing or any type of retail, and you Google obsolescence, they all come back and, they say, oh, we build in 10% into our sale price. We accrue 10% to deal with obsolescence. Okay? Car manufacturers and dealerships in particular, that's what they need to do now. They need to pass that cost on and accrue that, because there's going to be that doesn't make up for sloppy special order habits and things like that. But, in the process, and it's just very natural, is as a dealer, you're going to have obsolescence in parts just because of the way you do business. The manufacturer policies, warranty policies and procedures. You can't get a warranty customer to prepay a part and refund them when they come in and get it done, right? And if you did, you get a terrible CSI score. But as we see with all the idle capital that has built in the dealership environment over the last 10 years, it really boils down to the manufacturers cut out return allowance and our ability to get rid of it. We are going to have to generate some grosses and pass it on to the customer to make sure that we can continue to have a good inventory and get rid of the bad inventory. There you go.
That's a perfect way to end it. And I think that's a strategy that we've always done with our clients, and it's proven to work with all the reduction of obsolescence that we've been able to accomplish. So that's very helpful, Chuck. Thank you.